Thank you. We'll call to order the annual meeting of the Ramshorn Village Homeowners Association. My name is Denise Bulat. I'm the president of the board of directors. I'm from Bettendorf, Iowa. And our next agenda item is to introduce our other board members, and they're wonderful. We all work together very well, but come with different information and expertise to the table. And we'll start with Clark for self-introductions, please.
Clark Lear from Columbus, Nebraska.
Steve Hughes from Bella Vista, Arkansas.
Sally Langston, Louisville, Colorado.
Mark Miner, Sylvania, Ohio.
Dennis McClatchy, Santa Barbara, California.
Matt Hansen, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Thank you all. Again, we have a great board of directors and we work really well together. We next want to introduce our great department heads, and Deb Gibson will do that so that they can get back to the great work that they do.
No problem.
Okay, welcome. It is Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, so we want them to get back to work real quickly, especially Dan, who is frantically painting the pool. I'd like to start off with Erin Dalby. A lot of you don't see Erin in front of the house. This is Erin. She's our assistant resort manager. She's been our assistant resort manager and bookkeeper for 21 years. Thank you, Erin. Tina Brown, our guest services manager, 21 years. Tina is responsible for everything that touches a guest. A lot of things. A lot of things. Dan Hannaford, engineering manager of 26 years. Just so you know, Dan is the third most senior person here after Alex and I. That's tremendous. Yeah. Tiffany Hannaford, I'm sure you all know Tiffany. She's been with us for 21 years and is our owner services coordinator. Lastly, I'll mention in absentia, Gus Laverio. He's our front office and revenue manager. He's been with us 4 years, but he came with us, or to us, in September of 2020 with 18 years of hotel experience. So we're glad to have him as well, but he is a brand new daddy. And he could not both take care of his daughter this morning and his son and his wife and get here for the meeting. So he sends his apologies, but I hope you all get a chance to get to know him. All right? Thank you, Denise. You're welcome.
So next, Dennis McClatchy, our secretary, will verify or a quorum or the lack thereof.
Morning. Excuse me. Pursuant to our bylaws, an official meeting requires the attendance of at least 20% of ownership weeks to meet the meeting requirements. Based on today's attendance, as tabulated by your RSVPs, that mark has not been met. Therefore, there can be no official action taken today. However, in the past, we trust the information provided will be helpful in providing the current nature and status of your resort. And questions can be asked from those present and through the chat mechanism from those watching remotely. Minutes of this meeting will be taken and will be posted, as all minutes are, on the Ramshorn website. But again, because the meeting is unofficial, so will the minutes be considered so. With this acknowledgement, we can proceed.
Thank you, Dennis. And before I start my report, I wanted to thank Sean Doherty. He's our IT guy, and he's also an owner. So we really appreciate him making it possible for our owners to be here remotely with us. Thank you, Sean. So your elected board members are really pleased to announce that we have our 32nd consecutive year as an RCI Gold Crown, and we are one of less than 15 resorts in the entire world with that ranking for that many years. So we are really proud of it, and I think we all know it's because of our great staff. So I hope you all recognize them and understand how much they mean to keeping this resort at that top level. Our board has met in person in November, usually to discuss mostly the budget. And we also met for the last 2 days here in Estes Park and received our audit, and you'll be hearing from Mark Meinert about that. And we also receive monthly and bi-monthly reports from the staff. So it's not like we're disconnected at all. We receive a lot of reporting from the staff. As we noted in our December letter to you, this past budget year was really difficult. We had 2 significant annual fixed costs that increased significantly and are totally outside of our control. And that was property taxes and our insurance. Our association is a nonprofit organization. We aren't owned and controlled by developers who make a profit. And so we're very averse to having a special assessment. And in our 34-year history, we've never had a special assessment. We hope we never have to. We don't know. We don't know what the future will bring. The board unanimously chose the way we approached the budget. And that was, we approved an increase of 7.5% increase in dues and a rental fee increase from 40 to 50%. That wasn't easy, but it was the only way we could think of to try to balance that budget. The board strives to maintain the Ramshorn value too of the homes that we're in and the property. And so we look at all the capital costs that we need to spend in a given year, and we decide with the staff and their feedback, what are the best things, what are the things we need to do to keep this resort, again, one of the top resorts in the world. And that's not easy because we have to pick and choose. And we especially had to pick and choose this budget year. But you still see a lot of improvement. You know, over the last few years, we've had new dining sets, we've had new mattresses, new headboards, we're starting to do the new fireplaces, we're seeing new concrete work here and there where repairs are needed, we're trimming trees. So all of those have a capital cost, and we all consider what those capital costs are and balance and weigh them along with our staff and their feedback. Finally, I want to mention that there are 2 board positions up this year, and we encourage all of our owners to consider serving the association. The voting committee and our staff will contact you in July for your self-nominating opportunity. I encourage you to contact any of our board members if you have any questions, and any of the resort staff. We hear about that feedback, we share ideas. Again, we work really well together. And thank you for being here. We appreciate the fact that those here remotely and those here in person care enough about the association to be here with us. Thank you. The next report is from Deb Gibson, our community manager.
I got handed a note. Welcome all, and thanks for being here, whether you're here in person or remotely or watching us afterwards. You have every opportunity. So I won't read my report verbatim, as I hope you take a chance to go through and read some of the details. Let me know if you have any questions. I kind of look at this annual meeting as a kind of a family reunion of sorts, and it's a chance for all of us to catch up on what's important and what's going on in our lives, and in this case, our resort. We're having a terrific year so far. We've gotten a huge amount done over the winter with reserve projects. The spring reserve projects are delayed a little bit by our heavy snows this spring. A couple of things I might want to call your attention to in my report this year that's kind of new. It's something we've been working on for about 3 years now. We've started implementing it I believe in 2022. It's called Owner Connect. You'll find it on our website. You can log in. If you need help with that, contact Tiffany or Michael, and they'll be happy to show you how to get into the Owner Connect system. But it's your way of communicating with the association and the Owner Services Department for payments, for other, looking at documents, all that kind of thing will eventually be available to you. One of the things that we did do starting in '22 is starting to implement the owner payment program with Owner Connect Online. This year, we're about a month away from probably launching the Owner Connect unlimited reservations for some of the weeks that are lesser demand. So look out for some news on that coming. I'm hoping to get you out a newsletter here in the next week or so with more detail. Also, I wanted to kind of reiterate, we are putting a great deal of attention to our rental activity because that helps all owners and the association. This year, some of our high season rates are as high as $650 a night to the public. That makes about $4,500 a week to somebody plus tax. That brings it up to over $5,000 a week for somebody renting with us. So it's a tremendous value if you're a homeowner, comparing the two expenses for a weekly vacation in this kind of quality. RCI Gold Crown, as Denise has already mentioned, that's phenomenal to think about. I think the exact number is 13 resorts out of 4,500 worldwide, so I'm impressed. Can't do it without our exceptional staff. We have some longevity here that you saw it in the department heads. You're also seeing it in the frontline staff. We have people in our housekeeping department that have been with us 10 and 12 years, and that is hard work. So I'm very, very proud of them and how they work together. A lot of them are cross-trained, so if one department is short-staffed, the other departments can jump in and help. So hopefully you don't see any glitches in service. The reviews, I would really encourage you to go on TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Google, RCI. Look at the reviews that others are stating. These are some of the highest reviews of any resort I've ever seen, and they're consistent. So you don't see the up and downs, somebody loves it and somebody hates it. They're consistently great reviews. You're also welcome to review your own property because you guys vacation here more than anyone else. Alex would be talking about resale value. Denise has already touched on the reserve improvements and how they build value here. We can't continue to command the attention of our owners in the first and second and third generation unless we make this a comfortable, nice place to come stay. And we can't command the rentals that we get or the reviews that we get if we don't keep our property up. I especially want to thank our board. They do work excellently together. I have witnessed how hard it was to make some of the decisions that they did. It was painful for them too. I mean, they're all owners. You guys elected them. They come from an owner perspective, and each one of them has some expertise in a variety of different areas. But you have people making decisions for you that share your experience. So that is more important than anything I can say. In a lot of properties, you have management companies or developers who have an entirely different viewpoint. They watch your nickel and dimes for you, but they also watch the outcome that they hope to produce. So I thank these people. Thank you.
Good morning. I get the fun part of going over the exciting audit. We met Thursday with the auditors, and I'll just kind of briefly go over, I'll just touch the highlights of it. First of all, management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. And they base their opinion on auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, and they're required to be independent of the association. And they have to meet other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the relevant ethical requirements related to our audits. And their opinion is, in our opinion, the financial statements above to present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the association as of December 31st, 2023 and 2022, the results of its operations and its cash flows for the years then ended in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So we have an unqualified or an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which is exactly what we are hoping for. And I have to thank Erin. I mean, without her and her expertise and her accuracy, we possibly would not have a clean audit. So thank you, Erin. I'll touch briefly on the highlights. I'll go over the statement of revenues and expenses and changes in fund balance. For revenue for the year ended 2023, we had operating revenue of $2,466,000. Then we had some allocation of revenue to the replacement fund or the reserves. That was about $31,000. That includes investment income and some other fees and other income. So it gives us a total of about $2,497,000 in revenue. Our expenses for operating expenses were $2,375,480, and that is up 7.15% over last year. And like Denise had talked, our insurance went up 39%, almost $77,000, which we have no control over. As well as real estate taxes, they went up, oh, that's included in there. Payroll expenses went up 3.25, which is not unreasonable. That's pretty average across the country. But our payroll expense is 50% of our total expenses. Our utilities went up 4.25%. So, you know, we're trying to do the best we can to keep our fees down. I mean, just like Denise said, we're all owners and, you know, we have to pay the dues also. So we really try to watch everything that we do. We had so that gives us a surplus of about $91,000 from operations. And then we had the replacement fund, which is the repairs and maintenance, the capital improvements. We spent about $215,000. So, and that netted out to $184,000, which the expense was offset by the income that was allocated. So overall, we had excess of expenses over revenue of $93,000. And we ended up the year with a surplus, our fund balance of $932,000. Then I'll go over the balance sheet. We ended up this year with total assets of $3.3 million. We had liabilities of $2.375 million, and you take your liabilities, take those from your assets, and it comes out to our fund balance of $932,000. Any questions from the audit? I mean, if anybody wants a copy, there are some available, and I believe they'll be posted online. I think so. Yeah. So that's the report on the audit, and then I'll review our fund summary of our cash and investments. As of April 30th, we had total fund balances of $1,427,421, and the breakdown of those. We've got operating funds of about $26,000, held for future use, which is rental deposits and future years prepaid dues. That totals $1.1 million. And then in our reserve funds, we've got $291,000. So that's my report. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. Not? Okay. I'll introduce Mark Allison. He's our chair of our investment committee, and he'll give a report on some of our investments. Thank you.
Well, I'm Mark Allison, and I'm the chair of your investment committee, and our charge is to try to earn a little bit more on our funds than would be available in the commercial bank account. I'm sure any of you who have bank accounts know that they're not overly generous in what they pay, and so we've tried to enhance that. As of the end of April, we had $1,322,000 of investable assets. 86% of those are in individual bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds, and some bond funds, and the balance is in money market. Currently, the yield on both the money market and our overall account is 5.2%, and I think you'll realize that that's significantly above what would be available if we just had it in a bank account. For calendar year 2023, we had a total return of 7.32%. That was due primarily to the fact that inflation came down from about 9% to 3+% because the Fed raised rates at the fastest rate in history. Thus far this year, we've only earned about 0.75% because rates have risen slightly since year end. But over the last 12 months, we've still had a return of about 4.7%, which again is significantly above what would be available in a bank account. And as I said, our investments are composed primarily of U.S. government bonds, corporate bonds, and some bond funds, and of course money market. We don't have any stocks, so we're not subject to some of the volatility that you may have seen here the last few days. The other day, the stock market was down about 600 points, so fortunately we weren't impacted by that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Alex Gibson, our real estate guy and jack of all trades, will come to the podium now. And thank you, Mark. We don't always get the blessing of having Mark with us actually in person, so we appreciate that.
Good morning, everyone. Keep hearing the number 34 years. I just started, this is actually my 35th anniversary at Ramshorn. Closed on the property representing Rail Corporation September of 1989. And I remember putting a desk where Clark is sitting in the old clubhouse. And that winter, I thought I was nuts. There was a bathroom back there, and the slats between the boards, you could see the traffic going by. So. Real estate in Estes Park just continues to go nuts. It's average median home sale ranging anywhere from $1 million to $1.3 million. Average price of a condominium in May was $650,000. It's going to continue. One of our owners who used to own here sold, helped him find a condo years ago. Then as they had to go to Arizona because of parents that were elderly, helped them sell their condo. All of a sudden, after 10 years, about 3 weeks ago, I look at my phone and go, Joe, get the answer to the phone. He says, I'm moving back, help me find a home. And I said, Joe, you know, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. He goes, I know, I've been watching, I can afford it. They thought they got themselves a great, well, I think it's really hard, Calvin, you know, you think something is a bargain at $610,000. Now, how long ago was it I helped you find your home? How many years ago now?
Was it on 6?
6 years.
When the Indians were.
Aren't you glad you did it when you did?
Yeah.
So if anybody's moving to Estes Park or you know friends, I've been a realtor for over 35 years. With the resales here, we have renters that finally the pain of paying over $650 a night, they decide it's time to become owners. The quality of the property is amazing. We do try to keep as much of the resale activity in-house. It has two things that are very hard to combat these days. You all see on TV, on the radio, the timeshare exit programs, where the timeshare industry as a whole is slammed day after day after day. In reality, 85% of the people that own this product around the world love it. I think everybody at Ramshorn, vast majority love it. And every now and then we, right? And every now and then we have some people that go to an outside broker that really doesn't know the product, and her answer is to lower the price and lower the price. So that's the challenge, is, as Deb's mission statement says, is to maintain the values for everybody involved at Ramshorn Village. So that's it. Have a great time. Any questions?
Hey, Deb, we're going to do a question from here.
Yeah. And we don't have a governance committee report. There was no activity to report. And you have a written statement from our voting committee. And as I mentioned, there will be 2 positions up this calendar year, and you'll receive information in July about your opportunity to self-nominate. So I'm reporting on the status of the weeks that we own as an association, and we own 349 weeks. 93 are red, 133 are white, and 123 are blue. So that's the status of our weeks. Before we move to owner's questions, I do want to mention that the next annual meeting will be May 24th, 2025. So hopefully you'll put those on your put that on your calendar, and that will be our next annual meeting. So with that, we will open the floor to questions. We'll try to repeat the question. We know that's been requested, and we'll go from there. So are there any questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
There's a couple of questions from George Hicks. First one, what percentage of weeks are, I think this is from really early on when you were talking, what percentage of weeks are participating, assuming remote participation counts? It was from really early on.
Oh, okay. So that would be related, I believe, Dennis, to the potential that we could have a quorum.
From the RSVPs.
Correct. But from our RSVPs, we did not have a quorum either with a collective combined in-person and remote. We do not have a quorum. And we do not know I don't know if we know how many people signed up remotely, Deb?
It's a matter of number of weeks.
Yes.
So
Oh, number
it's a
of
matter
weeks.
Number of weeks.
Yes.
So you would have to have 20% of 2,346 weeks. We didn't have close to that.
460 people.
About 460 weeks, yeah.
We'd have to have 460 weeks of people participating in this meeting to have a quorum.
Great. There was a second question from George Hicks. Have we had a recent trend in property claims that has contributed to our insurance cost increases? Or is it just industry-wide cost pressure?
It's industry-wide. We're being put into a pool. In fact, we just discussed that in the board meeting. We discussed the fact that no longer do insurance people come and actually walk a property and determine its potential risk. So no one knows that we have a campground behind us, giving us blank land, not trees, a road next to us, and a river in front of us, and determine that we have less fire risk, let's say, than someone else who's in the middle of a forest. None of that's being done anymore. They're just putting us all into one pool, and that's what we're being charged, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we could add to that,
Let me try to get this off.
no, I guess I would just like to add to that, that the state of Colorado as a whole has had wildfires, has had disasters, and that's driving our rates up, even though we don't have specific insurance claims. So it's an excellent question. So it's industry-wide, it's Colorado-wide. It's not specific Ramshorn experience.
And you should also add, our experience, we've had virtually no claims in all the years of owner management.
Yeah.
Knock wood.
But as a team, we have to make sure, this board, that we do insure the property. And I think our insurance costs this year represented 17% of our budget. So that's a high amount, right? When you think we've got staffing, we've got insurance, but there's really no alternative. We want to protect all of our investments.
Another thing to point out is when we had the flooding in, I think, what year was that, 2013? 2013, we only had a little bit of water on our property. So we really haven't had any claims. But we, again, are being pushed into that big pool.
Right.
Good question. The question from Robert Donathan. How much was our property casualty insurance premium for the new year?
For this year, we had, our premium for this year, we had to budget $220,000.
And just to give a little more perspective to that, our property and liability insurance in 2021 was $76,000, 2022 $87,000, and then 2023 we were projecting $151,000, which was not enough, and now this year it was the $220,000. So you can see that insurance cost has gone up, almost $130,000 or $140,000 over 4 years.
Yeah, so over 100%.
That's all I have so far on here.
So are there any other questions, either remotely or in the room?
Yeah. You're a leader. What questions do you folks have?
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
I just put out another invitation for more
Okay.
questions.
Thank you, Sean.
You might mention while we're waiting that there's going to be food put out in about 5 minutes after the meeting's.
Yeah, for those who are here, a light brunch is going to be laid out for you right after the meeting. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for attending.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And braving the wind to get down there.
Yes.
We have a question from Laura Bartnick. Are you planning to shop around for other insurance companies or indemnity programs?
Oh,
Yes, we are. In fact, we just met with a potential insurer during the board meeting. So we are definitely, and we use a broker. So it's not like we're stuck with their insurance. We use a broker who determines what the best opportunities are for us. So even the insurance we have for this current calendar year was done through a broker, and they shopped around, and staff actually questioned, and we did too, certain parts of the insurance and tried to tweak it down as much as possible, while, as Sally mentioned, staying totally insured. We do not want to risk anything for our property that might happen, so we definitely want to be fully insured.
Just getting a lot of thank yous to everybody for all their hard work, just so you know.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question from George Hicks. How stable is the number of weeks owned by the association? Is there any plan or desire to move it either up or down?
It's been pretty stable the last 2 years. Obviously, we'd love to sell some of the weeks. We know that if we have a few weeks within the association, and by the way, we rent our weeks too, but we rent behind the owners, as Deb has explained in prior annual meetings. So that means you, the owners, if you're putting your week up for rent, your opportunity for rent goes first before the association. And so so that's an important thing to point out. But it's been pretty stable. Every once in a while, we take a property back that's gone into foreclosure, and that's something else the board and staff talk together about. We talk about those situations too. And we love it when an existing owner or the family member of an existing owner, maybe even second generation, purchase some of those that go up for sale, let's say, at the county courthouse. Then we love to see that when those opportunities arise, and we see our family here at the association grow.
Denise. I just wanted to make a comment about the association weeks. In 2023, we had $184,000 of rental income on association weeks. And that was up $30,000 from 2022.
That's great.
And we would have to save an average of $905 a week. We'd have to sell 202 weeks to equate that rental income.
It's a very good point. Yes.
I have a question. We're actually own a home up here as well as on Weeks with Ramshorn. And with all the construction and destruction going on throughout the Estes Park area, is that affecting the rentals that are going on right now?
Yes, she's asking, there's construction, as you know, the bypass work is going on. I think people probably experienced it last year when they were enjoying their weeks, and now it's going in earnest. There's a roundabout being reconstructed, and one of the roads that people might take as a back way is closed, not Moccasin Pass, but another one. And so it really has kind of created some havoc. But I guess I'd ask Deb to mention how she's seen rentals. Right now we're seeing a pretty strong June and July.
Yeah, we saw a softening in the first 5 months of the year. I think in part because of that, but also in part because of cold weather. We had some really cold temperatures, lots of wind, and not very much snow for the skiers early on. So, but we're okay, and those are our lighter months anyway. Some of the construction is going to start coming to a conclusion at the end of June, and then it's going to start progressing. So what we do to prepare our owners and rental guests as much as possible is we have information that the front desk distributes on workarounds and alternative routes, and our Visit Estes Park Marketing District, which I'm also still a board member of, is doing a lot of proactive education. Let people know we're open, we want them to come, we're going to help you get around as best as possible. We've got some public transportation, we have public parking areas, particularly in the parking garage, that are free. So we're doing what we can to help mitigate that. The end result is, we have a situation where when I moved to town, there were roughly 900,000 people coming to Rocky Mountain National Park. We've seen numbers as high as, I think, 4.6 million. Went down a little bit last year with the timed entry, but not meaningfully. It's still over 4 million. So we have to be able to accommodate that traffic. So it's a little painful now, but it's in preparation for making everybody's experience better in the future. So we're sorry for the pain. It's going to get better. Right now our summer looks pretty strong. And I don't think it's going to adversely affect the summer rentals. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of questions coming through. This is from John. I don't have his last name. Any thoughts on how to increase participation for the annual meeting in person or online?
I know our staff, I know Deb, we send out the invitations ahead of time. We announce the meeting today, so we know the date of the meeting already. And so people have that opportunity. I think that I know some people who were here came in and said hello, said they weren't able to stay, asked if there was any new information. We shared that we had a clean audit. We shared that the letter that we sent out in December was going to be referenced in the meeting, but otherwise there weren't anything new and late breaking. And
yeah, and I think also for those, and I don't know if everybody remembers this or if they were around in the past, et cetera. One of the things that we redid in our documents is that the meetings became less important because no action could be taken by the board without the approval of all owners. So for example, if Linda brought up that she wanted us to put in tennis courts and enclose the pool and spend a couple $100,000 doing it, we could not vote in a meeting to do that. It means that anything that would come up in a meeting that would require owner approval would go out to all owners anyway. So the meetings became less important because nothing functionally can happen. So that's number one. Number two, during COVID, we all learned how to make this more accessible and easy and convenient for people to participate in. So even if we don't have everybody here in person, we've got a lot of people online, and then we have people who watch it later and get back to us with questions or comments. So there is participation. The other thing is, generally, when you see a lot of participation, it sometimes means that things aren't going well. And I think for most of our owners, they're satisfied with how things are going. If not, they let us know. But because there isn't anything of significant concern, people are just content to let things run and just come in. This is a vacation home, and I think people like to have it as a respite from thinking about things. So anyway, hopefully things will stay calm, cool, and collected for us in the coming years, and we won't have those kind of issues. But understand that also there is nothing that can happen in a meeting that doesn't require that all owners participate in the decision. So.
Thank you.
Question from Chris. Who gets the priority for sale of weeks, association or owners?
The owners. The owners get the, on the sale of weeks?
Resale.
Resale of weeks. Oh, well, what happens is resales probably go before association weeks. Is that true, Alex? Yes, every time. And so that's what's been happening. And usually they are probably more attractive too. One of the ways that owners can make their resale attractive is to make sure to reserve a week. If you reserve a red week in a top time, then you know you're going to be able to sell your week more likely than we are. We don't even get to reserve a week until I think it's 1 year. 1 year, but you as an owner can reserve 2 years ahead. So it's definitely the owner.
Question from Ken Snavely. How many RCI exchanges do you get per year, approximately?
Right around
300 or so?
350.
350. Tiffany's still here with us, and she said we have approximately 350 exchanges.
Virtually all off-season.
And almost all of them are off-season because we're all using the red season.
This is a comment from George Hicks. One way to nudge insurance premiums up or down is to change the deductible, especially if claims are minimal. What is our deductible?
Depends on the type of.
It really depends on the type. It depends on the type of peril. We learned from that's the wording that our insurance companies are using is peril. But what was the actual activity that occurred? So it definitely depends on that. But in most cases it's 50,000, I believe. But it depends on the peril. It depends on what's going to happen. So and it's fairly complicated, actually. It's more complicated than you think.
This is from Terry in regards to the participation we were talking. Lots of people are traveling on Memorial Day weekend. Maybe if these meetings were not on that weekend, the participation might be higher? Question mark.
Yeah, it's hard. One of the reasons we chose this is it's good weather from a travel perspective, obviously for anyone, including the board, but it's still not our top height of our season. So typically there's availability. When the board used to meet in the week of 40 or 41, we were using a top week or top weeks, and that took away those weeks from our owners. So we definitely don't want to do that. And in November, when we meet for the budget, it's not overly busy here, but we still are able to get in and out. I fly from Iowa, but we're trying to doing a kind of a balancing act of trying to have good enough weather to get here, but also looking at our schedules and also looking at the owner's availability to get here too. If you decide in December or November you wanted to come up to the budget meeting, you could, and hopefully you could still easily get up and not have too many travel problems from a snow perspective.
So far, no more questions, just a lot more thank yous.
We have a question here in the room.
One of my questions was about the road construction, and they've answered that, of giving good information to people. My second question is that it may not relate to Ramshorn Resort directly, but indirectly, the policies that Rocky Mountain National Park decides to implement, they impact us indirectly, as far as how many people will come and what kind of people will come. And I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a controversial issue of the accessibility to the national park. And I've even seen at some point, maybe last summer, there was a petition to try to change this policy of this timed entry thing. And the timed entry thing is just part of it. But realistically speaking, if you have a person in a wheelchair and you want to go to the handicap area of Rocky Mountain National Park, which would be Bear Lake and Sprague Lake particularly, and the Sprague Lake Campground. If you don't have a timed entry, you cannot even enter that road until after 6 p.m. And I worked in special education for many years, and I actually have in my family people who are disabled. And so to me, this is a question, if I would get more upset about it, I would start asking more questions of the National Park Service. Are you indeed limiting access to people with disabilities? That is a question I have, and especially the 6 p.m. corridor, where they have specifically said Bear Lake, Sprague Lake, and the campground at Sprague Lake are for disabled people. But if they don't have a reservation, they cannot even go into that road until 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's just a question I have.
You might want to repeat that question or something.
The concern is I understand.
They can't hear you.
The concern is that the timed entry might impact our resort, but it also impacts in general the people who want to get into the park, especially those who are disabled, because the Bear Lake Road is one of the hardest ones to get timed entry to. It really is the hardest one. I know personally that it's the hardest one. And it's the area where the most disabled access is available, like Sprague's Lake and Bears Lake. And that is impacting people unfairly, really. And whether or not the National Park Service has even considered that impact, because then people can only visit, excuse me, only visit after 6, which is, late in the day, and it seems a bit unfair. So I don't know how that has been impacted, but we have talked about timed entry and its impact. We as a board have talked about that. Right now, I don't think we're seeing that so much among our rentals, but it is a concern. I know we've all expressed the concern. I haven't heard it from the perspective of the entry for disabled, but that's a very good point. And probably it should be commented, and there should be maybe some sort of pool or pot of timed entry just for those who are disabled. So some sort of allowance, potentially. That's something that should be considered, I would think.
Do you want to also mention the 60-40, so 60% up front and then 40 the night before?
When you say that.
So we don't have any control over that, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
You're seeing more and more of the national parks have timed entry, even state parks now, county parks, et cetera. And I think it's something that's going to be here. On the other side, I have had owners that traditionally go to Yosemite or some of the other really even busier parks than us, where people show up and there's no reservation system and the lines are so long that they just can't get in ever. So, there's a balance. But one of the things that they did at Rocky Mountain National Park is 60% of the timed entry tickets are available a month ahead, you know, we send out reminders of that so you can get online and be ready. But 40% are available the night before, I believe it's 7 o'clock at night.
Yes, 7
Yeah.
o'clock at night.
So at 7 o'clock at night, make sure you're already logged in, like we suggested to you today, 15 minutes ahead. Have your payment method on your account, ready to go, and pick your your preferred times and be ready to click, because they do go quickly, particularly in July and August. But unlike, I know one of the things that they did over at the Indian Peaks Wilderness is they do the timed entry. You have to make the decision a month ahead, and they have nothing reserved for the night before. So that makes it really tough. This way, 40% of the availability is the night before.
We have another question here in the room.
No, to back up what Deb has said, I worked as a volunteer for the Estes Park Visitor Center, and people would, no matter where they came from, East Elephant Breath, wherever, you know what I mean, and they were in another strange country, and where do they want to go? Everybody wants to go to Bear Lake, and so it's like you have, that's the other thing that they're competing with, and they asked me to come back the next year, and I couldn't, but I said, if I come, I get to tell everybody that Bear Lake is in Allen's Park. And they were so desperate, they said, okay, you can tell them that. But I think that's also fits in that.
Right. We have a comment in the room that Bear Lake is just this known area, even for people from other countries who are coming to Rocky Mountain National Park. They think that's the place they have to go. And the reality is, it's not the place you have to go, but you have to get to know the park to understand that. There's a lot of other places. I love Lily Lake. And Lily Lake, you don't even need to have timed entry. You can sneak in there anytime. And so there's, maybe I shouldn't mention those things. So anyway, but yes, that's the other problem. Bear Lake is just really very difficult to get to.
A couple of comments. This one's from Laura Bartnick. For higher investment return with very low risk because of insured and secondary assurance backup strategy, we highly recommend Lord and Richard's Financial Planners in Denver. That's the first comment. And then this is a comment from Terry, is it Syme or Syme? I am a volunteer for the National Park Service. I will ask about this concern at an upcoming meeting and let Deb know what I find out.
Thank you very much, Terry. We appreciate that. Great. That's great. If there aren't any other questions.
I'll do one more invitation for questions.
Okay. All right, well, we don't have any more questions. We want to thank everyone who participated remotely and in person. Thank you so much. For those of you who are here today with us, please stick around for our brunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.